Okay, folks, it's that time to properly round out the day with the fifth and final matchup. We are getting into it. Unemployment taking on One Shot, eighth place taking on second place. Now, Unemployment 2-2, respectable scoreline. They're doing all right. But One Shot, this team is 3-0. All three teams, all three games coming in regulation. But if anything today has been proven, it's that it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. There's so much parity, and we've mentioned this point before. We've mentioned this, that unlike stage 2 of last year, where anything goes because nothing mattered, I think anything goes here because of the parity. So Tanner, Unemployment, they could do it. Like, this roster's good. Like, we know that these players are good.
Absolutely. We know this roster is good, and the biggest issue that they're having is just finding that consistent roster. I know we're talking about this every single time they pop up, but who's playing today has always been a big asterisk for us. Is Mikey playing? Is he not playing? Is Karn playing? Is he not playing? Is Indy playing? Whitlock playing? Who's on the field, right? But one thing I will want to point out is they do have a bunch of shooters, and they have been showing up in a big, meaningful way. They've got 2 wins and 2 losses, and almost every single one of their games have looked close, with the exception being the last game that they played off stream yesterday versus Nocturnes. They had an absolute dominant 7-4 victory, and they looked absolutely spectacular, namely off the back of Cassizi, which I'll talk a little bit more in my critical points.
Not to mention that 2-2 is a 1-1-1-1. They have every single kind of game in the bag right now. So Connor, One Shot, they only care. There's only one type of ending to a game for this team.
Yeah, and usually it's pretty good for One Shot. And the only reason they're not in first place right now is because, they just have less games played than the team above them being rent-free. So as soon as they get all those games under their belt, they have a couple of the harder weekends that, hey, you're playing 2-3 games even. They can just start really racking up those points, and they can try to solidify themselves because, regulation, it's the only word that they know. They don't know what the word overtime means. They're the opposite of Dark Zero because this is X-Set. There's so many old X-Set players on this team, and one of them being Razor, also a former Mirage player. Razor has, in the last couple of games, kind of had a slow start first game, and then ever since then has been really waking up, especially in that early round on the attack. Sure, he's still struggling a little bit on the defensive side, that's where most of his entry deaths are on the roam. But finding the success on the attack, getting that Finka LMG and letting it go Burt, that's always going to be a great thing, especially for this team, when you can have an IGL like Kilo and supplemented in by shot calling from Prod. This team has looked incredibly sharp.
Now, Tanner, when you go up against a team that is 3-0, do you spend your time trying to be the ones to figure them out, or do you just spend your time figuring out your own team and making your game work?
It really depends on where Karn and Co feel like they're at as a team. I feel like when you're having such crazy roster shuffles that are constantly happening, it's very difficult to start preparing for your opponent because you don't even have your own foundation set yet. And this has been an ongoing trend for the last couple of weeks. I think Mikey's still in Korea right now, so I don't know if he came back or not. I don't know what his flight schedule is or his planning is. We'll find out here when we get to the lobby. But with the big thing with them, it's looking to your individuals on your team and if they can, put up these big numbers and if they can work together. One of the big ones I talked about in the roster was CZ. He dropped 18 kills versus Nocturne yesterday. It was an absolute dominant performance. And even versus Aqualix on Villa yesterday as well. They both looked really good. Like the CZ and Hat have looked really solid. The biggest issue I was seeing, though, is there was a big gap in their entry. Hat would go in. He would either get picked or he wouldn't get a pick. And the rounds were kind of determined whether or not Hat would show up or not. There was no real trading coming out for CZ. So I don't know what happened in the off-stream game, but I'm looking for them to kind of correct that if they're looking to have success today. And then the second thing, One Shot's a team that loves to control the pace. They love to get in your face. They love to, get their information and take things methodically and slowly. I'm looking for, if Unemployment, sorry, wanted to call him Karnikov, Unemployment can look to disrupt that process, disrupt that pacing, maybe put problems in front of them that they're not used to seeing, or just get aggressive when they don't need to be. Maybe that's their key to success here. But right now, if they just focus in on their game, they have an okay chance, I think, of upsetting One Shot, because that's what this stage is. It's nothing but upsets.
Now with One Shot, Connor, I have to imagine it's trust in the process. Everything's been going well. It's that veteran leadership. I mean, you've got all the pieces working. Is it just keep business as usual?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what we talked about earlier on, like week 1 kind of stuff with One Shot of, hey, their roster moves are a little bit of a gamble. They went from the known quantity that's a good top 3 team to all of a sudden They're recycling old pros, which we usually aren't a fan of. But for this case, it's looked pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And this right now with a regulation victory will put them tied on points with Rent Free. However, their round differential due to every win being in regulation should be just that little bit better. So they can cement themselves as that number one team, because the 1-in-1 shot, that's kind of them saying that this is their one shot once again to make it to Pro League, even though they're on the second iteration of the roster. So it's like their second shot, blada, blada, blada,
It's like
whatever.
the third stage, third shot.
It's like they're like second relegations potentially coming in. But Tanner, one of the things that we need to look for as we watch this game is kind of how Razor's going to get set up. You were talking about kind of the early round and getting in your face. That's exactly what's going to happen. And if Razor gets enabled, hopefully he should be able to shut down Hat, and you were talking about even shut down CZ.
Absolutely. I think Razor's one of those players that can hang with the best of them. I think he's one of the best entry players in the game in Challenge League, because he's one of those guys who can identify when to take space and when not to take space. If he's able to get the drop on Hat or CZ or find these gaps of opportunity, I wouldn't be surprised if you just see, Razor just pushing into sight and fragging along as he goes. And that's kind of what I'm looking for him to kind of do if he wants to have any chance of kind of quelling the aggression that's coming out of the top two fraggers from Unemployment today.
Now, I'm really interested in getting into this map, Veto, Tanner, because it does actually seem that as much as these teams seem to know each other and know their map bans, it seemed in the last matchup to work out really well in the favor of West Garfield Park. So there is always still the chance of winning, per se, these vetoes.
Well, I just want to kind of talk about how we go into these vetoes to kind of prepare. For the average viewer, you might not know this, but each team is a best of one, will get 4 bans. Therefore, throughout the week, you'll determine at the beginning of the week what maps you want to play, what maps you don't want to play. So for the side of Unemployment here, they decided at the beginning of the week they don't want to play Chalet, Cafe, Club, or Villa. Those are the 4 maps that maybe they're banning. It could have been one of the other ones that Outlast banned, and you're kind of anticipating one of the other 5 maps to be available. So I don't want to say anything along the lines of like they're not prepared to go to this map. We're going to be going to Bank. This is a map they probably anticipated. They have a game plan probably going into this. So I don't want to say it's like a one-shot side of thing, but we did see One Shot play this map. I believe it was versus Gaming Gladiators. They pulled out a 7-2 victory. They've looked really hot on this map. So I do want to say this is on the side of One Shot, but that's not to discount anything on the side of Unemployment. This is a very much a chance, or this is very much a map that they were prepared to go to.
They did actually face off against LSR. Now, as the predictions come up, we'll move through this quickly. Connor, any final words before we jump into it? I know we all voted One Shot, but let's be honest, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything at all. We all voted for Aerial Arise, and part of me in my heart right now wants to change because I think it's going to be an incredibly close game. But with what we've seen from One Shot, they're really gunning for this top 1 seed, and I think that they can very well get it. I think this is going to be like a 7-5, or it's going to overtime. It's not going to be like one of those 7-2, 7-3, 7-4s kind of easily onto the side of One Shot. This is a back and forth kind of game.
Until we see any.
Can I just add one thing? There's a difference between One Shot and Aerial Arise here, right? We may have all voted for Aerial Arise last game, but they have been looking sloppy. One Shot have not looked sloppy. They have been probably the most consistent roster we've seen this whole stage. So to make it this one side, they've earned that, and I think that's justified.
So the players are ready to go. We are going to Bank again. I'm not too mad about it though. It's a great map. Boys, take it away.
Well, I think Tanner said it perfectly. A team that's looked incredibly consistent. That's a pretty good descriptor when they're undefeated. 3 clean wins. No real other thing to mess around with.
Yeah, One Shot have definitely had a very, very good stage so far, on par with Rent Free, who have also played this map a few times in Stage 2 so far. Of course, as Brim also mentioned, One Shot getting a 7-2 victory over LSR, albeit that was LSR when they were at their lowest in Stage 2 so far, so that victory, while it has aged well just on the map, LSR are a little bit better of a team, and we know that might have been at a low point in their career. But in terms of this matchup, Jonah, with how well CZ, one of those entries, was performing yesterday and how consistent had have been, with One Shot starting out on the defense, I'm a little worried that if they're playing in these off positions, Unemployment might be able to still get these opening picks because of how well those 2 players have been performing recently.
Right, they've been fragging out and taking really good advantage of, like you said, those early duels. If One Shot are prepared for it, based on the way they've been playing, I don't think they're going to have too much of an issue to counter it. But it just comes down to how much prep have they done? Have they been paying attention to Unemployment's games? Do they know what they're walking into? It's Bank, after all. It's an attacker-sided map generally, and it can really lean frag heavy if you allow those attackers to just send their way in and get aggressive early. We'll have to wait to see how that exactly will play out. Of course, we just got through our operator ban phase, and while there's not too much of a shock with any of these bans, the Nook ban is something that we don't usually see on most maps. Generally, only a ban like that comes out when you are on Bank.
Yeah, we do see it sometimes, but Bank is definitely the map that it happens the most often. And as I mentioned earlier, actually, on our previous Bank matchup, where we first started seeing not only Nook played a lot more, but as a result, Nook banned a lot more. So this is sort of the genesis of both Nook being played and Nook getting banned. Importantly, though, Azami not banned on this matchup. NVK bringing her in the very first round was banned in our matchup earlier, and NVK can do quite a lot if he wants to play on the site and hold server very effectively. He can probably, if Unemployment decide to push there, throw up a lot of Kiva barriers and waste a lot of time there. But I imagine we'll see NVK on that top floor, on that middle floor, not necessarily with Razor, as he might want to play that blue stairs if he wants to, but still probably with him just because Razor is a more aggressive player. And that roaming duo, aided by NVK's Kiva barriers, could get right in the face of Unemployment.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, actually, that we didn't see the Azami ban, because in the few banks that we have seen so far this stage, we have seen some impressive play with those Kiva barriers on this map already, specifically from NVK. This is one of those barriers that we've seen from him before, just blocking off Dirt Tunnel, likely saving one or two of those barriers that remain to assist a blue stairs hold. Often what we see is Swaylin with a shield on the Warden at the top of those stairs, and NVK playing close behind him. When that pressure eventually builds, NVK can throw one of those Kiva barriers right on that doorway, slow down those attackers, force them to use a nade, use utility, or crouch walk their way underneath, and bolster that position even further.
And that can kind of negate the Thatcher being left on the board by Unemployment, because if you throw one EMP on that stairwell, all of those ADSs, they're gone. Any electronics, if there's a Wamai being brought, those magnets would be gone as well. So with that Kiva barrier that you mentioned, it stops it in their way and stops a potential nade from flying in and taking down Swaylin as well. He's also got that shotgun at close quarters, so even if NVK dies or can't get into position, he can still get very aggressive with anybody pushing through that spot. Half the round now gone, and Unemployment, they are looking over to that direction. You can see Hat fixating on it quite heavily, but still nobody pushing just yet. But as people start moving and congregating in square, Swaylin either needs to start getting active or might need to retreat.
Well, that's what MBK is there for, right? It will prevent Swaylin from having to back off if this utility is played well, but the big danger is those EMPs. This is where NVK will prove so important. Kiva barriers aren't going to be affected by those EMPs. That's going to force Unemployment to just brute force their way in, past this utility, send some flashes in, but boy, it looks like it worked. Swaylin just got decimated by a well-placed nade from CZ. NVK, he also got quite lit up and was forced to back off.
NVK on 1 HP, still doing the job he needed to, but Swaylin still falls just because of how many flashes Unemployment were able to funnel in. One of the walls opened up to sight as well. NVK on 1 HP, focusing on the back line. That leaves Razor with that long angle. Ooh, almost finding a one-tap, but more importantly, Prod with that C4 and Kilo with those smokes, both of them, to try to deny this plant. Vulcan Pack detonates, that's 20 seconds. Then now Unemployment cannot start moving in for the plant, but once that fire dissipates, those toxic canisters and that C4, they need to land if One Shot want to win this.
Well, 20 seconds is a lot of time. That is going to leave, well, just about 20 seconds for Unemployment to get this execute done. And with the toxic smokes to combine for that time delay, walking in could be just walking into your grave. The second smoke goes out. Only 15 seconds remain. The flash comes in, and Karn, he's just going to walk in and attempt to stick this, but Razor dealing that damage to CZ, finishing him off, dropping Karn down, dropping Indy down. Hat is getting torn apart, and Whitlock is the last player standing. A textbook hold there from One Shot. No chance for Unemployment to finish that execute through.
Really great Vulcan Pack placement by Prod there, because a lot of time was wasted in clearing out that Warden off server stairs, and even once Swaylin was dead and gone, Unemployment still had a little bit more work to do to start making their way downwards. Once they go to open up that wall, because of course they will, that's where the default plant is, that Vulcan Pack burns 20 seconds of time and also signals to Prod with the C4 and Kilo with the smokes to prep that utility. Get ready. And because of that little bit of extra time, that 20 seconds wasted, Kilo is able to put those smokes in exactly the right position. Prod can even save his C4 because Kilo was hitting those smokes every single time. And then because there's still a little time left, Karn is just forced to push on in and commit to what is likely his death because of how much of that toxic gas was still clouding up the area. Very excellent, and overall, just very well played defense by One Shot. Wasn't flashy, but it just worked out because everyone did their jobs.
Well, Hat here calling for a rehost due to a drone bug or something like that. We'll have that confirmed, and we'll have to get our players back in this lobby here. But we did learn a good bit from this start of the map, right? We did see exactly the engagement we expected to see on those blue stairs. What we hinted at for a large part of the round, we saw the Kiba barriers come into effect. We saw CZ and all that fragging potential tested right at the get-go. And I think we saw positives from both teams. I think that's fair to say, Carter.
Oh no, we definitely saw positives. The utility play from One Shot, even though they ended up losing the opening duel and Swaylen not only died, but wasn't traded out, that still was pretty much everything for One Shot working out. It just so happens that the flashbangs came through, with the Thatcher being on the board. Swaylen's going to get blinded, and he just has to hope he gets a kill there. But in the late round, the utility, exactly as you said, One Shot still got what they wanted. We're still able to have that Vulcan pack have an impact because it's where they breached and used those smokes and those C4s. So a very good showing from One Shot to start out, and also a little bit worrying for Unemployment because they brought a lot of the right tools to the job, and as I said, even got that first pick on the Swaylen that NVK couldn't trade back. But if you let One Shot get set up and you just play into their game, they were able to win that very first round very easily. But now to be fair, Jonah, they are going to open area, and we'll see things change a little bit. They'll likely have to get a little bit more aggressive on the roam than they had to on basement.
Right, this site is not going to play out the same way. But, you know, looking forward to potentially that next basement round, and I'll jump back to a point you just made. Unemployment did everything so well, it really seemed. Like, to go against that one-shot setup and deal with the blue stairs hold so perfectly, sure, it took them a little bit longer than maybe they could have taken if they knew it was coming, but to deal with that so perfectly and to still struggle to get into the site, that screams to me like a setup that you just do not want to touch another time. Maybe they'll try to challenge into it head on, but if I'm Unemployment right now, maybe I'm not focusing on the next basement attack they've got to get done, but, you know, come 2 rounds from now, they've got to change it up. They cannot do that same thing again because One Shot just showed us that not only do they have a lethal blue stairs hold that can waste time, utility, and maybe get a kill or two, but they have an impressive sight hold with those Vulcan packs, toxic smokes, C4, the works to deny that eventual execute. But like you said, basement, a little bit further down the line, we've got to focus on open area and staff room right now and seeing exactly what One Shot want to cook up here.
And still for One Shot, they can rely a lot on that utility, again, as opposed to the bank game earlier where we had Azami banned, and the bank game yesterday where we had Castle banned. Neither of those operators are off the board going into this game. It's just Valkyrie and Cade, something I imagine both teams were expecting. But because you have that Castle and that Azami on the board...
double.
Yeah, the double. 2 operators that are very powerful on roams and extensions on bank can be used by the defense. And even if they only want to bring one of those, maybe just bring the Azami or just bring the Castle, even still having one on the board can make roaming off-site a whole hell of a lot easier, especially if we see somebody from One Shot, maybe Razor, go to the Oryx and focus more on getting aggressive and getting kills. Having one of those, maybe even both, at his back, forcing the attack to not only clear angles, but maybe give away what kinds of positions they're prioritizing by when they destroy certain barricades or certain Kiva barriers. Having both of these operators potentially on the board for One Shot is going to make, maybe once the utility falls, still a lot easier because of the time it'll waste and influencing Razor's decision-making.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot to think about for this defense as they get into it, because like you said, so many options that they wouldn't normally be presented with. I think we'll definitely see the Azami. I feel like that's something that we've seen probably from NVK, you know, several times. I think it's something he's pretty comfortable on. But hey, Castle being up is not something they're probably used to all that much on bank either. So we could always see that instead. And right now it looks like it. NVK is the person who will be taking that Azami, or in this case, Castle role. And as we discussed a moment ago, they have similar positions in a defensive lineup, especially when it depends heavily on a top floor extension. Right now, we see NVK setting up one of those armored barricades down below on that staff room double door, heading towards Square, and another one on Tellers. Curious to see if he's going to opt for the vertical play at all, or instead, if they're going to be trying just to hold this site horizontally.
Extending into tellers is still something that is very much desirable by the defense, and even if he places every single one of these armored panels down below, it just means that Razor likely will not try to hold onto that top floor as fervently if he had maybe an Azami up there with him or a Castle Barricade up there with him. All four now will be placed on that bottom floor, making a fortress, but more importantly, a lot of places where One Shot can rotate and rotate safely. Of course, if somebody goes main lobby and once Razor maybe drops down that elevator hatch, it's got to be careful that double barricade doesn't get ripped open because he might be a dead man walking at that point, and something that he definitely needs to be wary of. But right now, it's actually NVK on the top floor, and maybe Razor, Razor will join him momentarily.
Yeah, the double roam on the top floor, but not the kind of extension we're used to seeing. It's just simply the roamers, extended with maybe a reinforcement or two, but really nothing else in terms of utility. Maybe a mute jammer or two to support this position, but I guess it doesn't matter. Mute jammers are not utility or not. NVK with a clean opener onto Hat as he just tried to make that entry happen for unemployment, something that they have done so well and something we talked about being very important for their success in this game.
You made a very good point in that One Shot they were playing with some reinforcements, but they weren't playing as dedicated as you might otherwise expect on a bank extension. But now that they got that kill, that's likely even better than what they were hoping for. They were maybe just hoping to get a few drones and then fall back. Obviously, NVK was playing on an aggressive angle, but able to take down Hat and then not even be traded out. He's probably feeling a lot happier and maybe getting something a little bit more than what he expected. Karn does answer back onto Kilo, who, as I was about to say, was pushing a little bit up those marble stairs aggressively earlier. He will unfortunately fall, but still overall, I'd say this roam was a success. You lose out on a C4 sure, but losing a set of nades and a Gone 6 that had, and forcing CZ and Whitlock maybe to do a little bit more work than what they would hope for, that's definitely a win for One Shot. And even with the even man count, they can still play a lot of these positions. They have control of elevator. They have plenty of control into the site as well, and a lot of their options still opened up.
Kilo making the mistake of getting aggressive after the unemployment drone network had kind of already been established. NVK was in a position early enough that he was not droned out and that there was not a lot of intel about where he was positioned, but Kilo, he definitely was spotted out because on the roof, Karn had no trouble getting that, what looked like an effortless kill. But shifting to the mid to late round now, unemployment roamers are no longer their priority. They have to start taking out these anchors and dealing with the utility that's nearer to the sites.
Yes, but only 2 drones right now to work with. Not a lot of time to open up some of these walls. Karn has his exothermic still remaining, but Indy finds a big kill on Marble, and that might just be the opening they need.
Now they can spring into action. Now they can start to move into this site. And CZ, here he goes. 2 kills back-to-back with the LMG. That leaves Razor alone and off the site. A classic danger of an Oryx roam. Now he has to remadash his way back into this site, through a couple of walls, through a couple of castle barricades, and, well, of course, that's going to telegraph his position beautifully. CZ will finish off that round with a triple kill, using that initial kill from his teammate as a springboard to launch himself into the objective and take firm control.
One Shot were doing quite good on that roam, taking down Hat early on, and even though they lost Kilo later, they still come ahead in terms of the utility lost on both teams, definitely favoring One Shot with the Yana falling off the board, and also about half the round now gone. Unemployment have time to get some things done, but as it ended up panning out, a minute spent before we got to about 30 seconds remaining, and they weren't really able to achieve much. But, most importantly, even though they struggled to open up that cafeteria wall, they struggled to maybe make a lot of presence or noise inside of small office, Indy's able to take down marble stairs, and what you have at that point is a side that fully favors unemployment. Indy can start pushing on in. The Thinker can feel a lot more comfortable, as we saw CZ do, pushing through small office, and if he dies, Indy's there to maybe get his trade as well, now that they have that angle at their disposal. He obviously didn't need it because CZ was a little bit better in that instance, but that was really what opened it up and allowed unemployment to actually have a place they could push from instead of just hoping to get some kills at various spots in the site.
Well, a nice top floor setup here. Again, focusing on horizontal play rather than a ton of vertical. Pretty natural, given that this bomb site is on the top floor after all. CEO and executive office, One Shot's next choice after an unsuccessful staff and open area defense. Their priority is likely going to be to hold a bit of an extension over towards stock, holding that position in the hallway, likely with a deployable shield that Swaylin has provided and several Wamai magnets that Razor is bringing into play. That Flores drone will attempt to detonate, was in range of both that Mute Jammer and the shield, but Razor wisely using an impact to take it out first.
Does need to be careful with those impacts, though, because a lot of the times those impacts are saved to destroy any Selma charges that are used to drive the Wamai out of that position. He's already used one to destroy a Rotero drone. Not saying that wasn't a bad decision. It was, because that would have destroyed his shield, and that probably would have been more problematic. But if he uses all of them, that could allow Karn to open up this wall. It will go forward, but so far, not sure the Mute Jammer's actually been destroyed. On the opposite side of that wall, yes, it is still alive. So Razor doesn't even have to use his remaining impact, and there's only one Rotero drone remaining for Hat. If he's able to destroy that final one, even if it gets to the detonating stage, he should be able to survive in this position fairly comfortably unless attackers starts swinging into square.
Yeah, at some point, we're going to have to see some utility burn, and finally it's going to come through from Hat. Now that allows them to just do it the old-fashioned way, with a nade instead of with a Rotero drone. Kilo, though, trying to support this position, will pre-place a C4, actually just rips on it immediately, hoping to catch Hat as he vaults in, taking quick control of stock, not allowing anyone to reposition, and like Razor, for example, to take control of this hallway.
But so much utility expended for unemployment. 2 nades from Whitlock, almost all of Hat's Rotero drones, and now he finds themselves in an engagement. He deals more damage to NVK than he takes in response. A lot of the damage by Razor has been done by just wasting time and wasting utility. Karn also now running low on Selmas, but that's mainly because he started turning his attention toward the site and opening up some necessary angles. But Hat does eventually fall inside of stock. Razor clearing out this long vending hallway, but Caesy looking to fill the gap momentarily.
Yeah, that was the duel we were waiting for, and actually Razor's the one who steps up. He steps up again now and takes care of CZ, just as the scoreboard, well, it lights up all in the way of one shot. Indy and Whitlock, they're the only ones who are going to be able to make a play, and they're caught in awkward positions nowhere close to each other. Indy over here on the main stairs, Whitlock on rappel still, with only 20 seconds left. Indy is in a crossfire. He'll get the kill onto Razor, but it's not going to matter as he loses his teammate, and Indy struggles to get any foothold on the remainder of this round. It's Prod to take care of him, but it simply wouldn't have mattered. 3 different one-shot defenders were trained on his position. No surprise that they were able to finish that one off with ease.
Yeah, gotta hand it to Razor, able to waste so much utility and half the round just sitting in that position in front of stock behind that deployable shield. But once he's cleared and Hat is able to start moving on in, Karn, and I was gonna say Karn and Co. like Tanner did earlier, but unemployment, but Karn as well, did not waste too much time in opening up remaining angles. Karn uses his remaining Selmas to start opening up some holes on the site, but then Razor is still able to get active down by elevators, and this is where things start spinning out of control for unemployment. Because this hallway is no longer secure, one shot can start pushing up it and getting aggressive and peeking into square if that happens. Once unemployment try to compensate, start holding angles, one shot slap them down off of it as well. So a lot of time was wasted early on by Razor, and also getting that kill as well to start things out well on their defenses. Unemployment then had to decide, okay, we want to commit, we don't have enough control in the site, okay, crap, let's try to retake what we already had, and one shot, unfortunately for Unemployment, they win the fights.
But Carter, we're back to the basement now, and this one is fun because there's a lot to talk about. We had a lot to say after that first basement defense from one shot, and the positives and negatives we saw there from unemployment. I'm surprised that we're not seeing any dramatic change on the attacker side of things in terms of their lineup. One shot know that they can just keep working with that same defense, but they are going to change one critical and maybe detrimental element now that you think about it. They're doing away with the Goyo. Those Vulcan canisters were so effective last time at wasting crucial seconds off the clock. Instead, Prod favoring the goo mines, maybe for time waste, maybe for some intel, maybe just for that T5.
Well, you can see him and Razor, at least Razor on the top floor, Prod on the middle floor right now, both getting a little bit more aggressive, or a little bit more aggressive early on, as opposed to what we saw in that initial basement defense. Razor takes down a drone, and somebody's going on in for the kill. Oh, no. That was a great reaction by CZ, but very narrowly a TK as he almost decapitates Hat, moving up that vending hallway. But Razor won't find any kills just yet, same with CZ. He'll start slowly moving back down towards the side. Prod might remain for a little bit longer. As you said, not having those Vulcan packs is a little bit worrying. That wasted half of the remaining time, 40 seconds down to 20, that Unemployment had to push into the site, and then maximize the impact of Kilo's toxic canisters and the potential for a C4 as well. Getting rid of that, it does help on a roam and waste even more time, and that might be what they're betting on, Jonah. They dropped the Goyo, which wasted time in the late round, but now waste over half the round early on.
Yeah, I'll hold my tongue on this because I want to see exactly how it ends up working, right? So far, it seems pretty effective. It just comes down to how efficiently Unemployment can turn this map control into something explosive, into an actual execute and an actual clear of this blue stairs position, something they haven't even sort of encroached on so far in this round. Finally, CZ and Karn will be working their way towards square. Hat will join them. Those EMP grenades now getting tossed out, and this is where Swaylin will start to feel the pressure. NVK with those Kiva barriers, getting them ripped in action now. Swaylin using those goggles, seeing through those flashes, shotgun in hand, he's ready to go.
He is ready to go, and unfortunately for him, he's probably going to have to commit. They've opened up that hatch. They're waiting for him to go, but he peeks one, almost takes down the second, but now he's got to fall back.
The nade, though, he just takes it, staying in position. He dropped that shield, but he's going to just stay here and take this fight. He gets one. Can he whip around and get two? No problem. He takes them both to the grave. CZ answers, sure. But does it matter at this point? 25 seconds left. One shot still, 4 bodies, and Unemployment with CZ on 1 HP. They got to work through this toxic smoke. Not looking good. Still a goo mine for Prod. He'll throw that out at the last second, and Prod will take care of one for good measure. CZ's been finished off. There goes Indy. Whitlock last alive, but not for much longer. One shot, making it look easy.
And as we hypothesized, Prod drops the Goyo and goes for the Legion to front load the stall that they had in round number 1. Instead of a Vulcan pack, they try to make it a little more active and stop Unemployment, or not even stop, just slow them down from entering the building. Force them to creep on and gain control instead of rapidly taking it. And once they do that, they waste half the round. Unemployment take a little bit longer to get into position. And Swaylin is still alive, and as you said, uncontested on those blue stairs. With NVK saving up some Kiva barriers as well, they're able to stall out even more time and get 2 kills. And one of those people that fell was Karn, with his remaining exothermic. Now Unemployment can't open up that server wall, and they just have to funnel through that doorway and drop down those hatches, and it basically ended almost the exact same as round number 1, despite it starting very differently.
Well elocuted, sir. Couldn't have said it better myself, because that really was exactly what that round was all about, right? That, I gotta say, I'm a little giddy over here. It makes me so happy. And maybe, I may be weird. I may be weird for this. It makes me so happy to see. It makes me so happy to see smart Siege. Really smart adaptations and one shot. I mean, that right there was textbook. They saw how effective Unemployment were in the early round at dealing with the blue stairs push. So they said, you know what? We're going to keep that blue stairs player there. We're going to go with the same setup. Let's just make it way more difficult for Unemployment to do that, to start that, right? And with that extension, with that roam, like you said, it just looks so good, Carter. It just felt so right.
It did. And you know what else was right? NVK just, well, hold on. NVK sitting in this exact spot and getting the first pick. This go around, well, he's got to fall off the angle because he's aiming big toe level, unfortunately. And Hat, he's starting to crouch walk in. He's made his way even further into CEO, trying to redeem himself from the loss in round number 2, and does a lot of damage to Razor, who might have to drop down elevator momentarily, and indeed he will. Both him and NVK retreating on that roam, but as I mentioned before on the previous open area defense, when NVK got that kill onto Hat, he was feeling happy. They probably overperformed a little bit from what they were expecting and found acceptable. This is the acceptable scenario.
Well, you see that castle barricade there on that double door facing elevator, a critical armored barricade that just saved Razor's life. Because Unemployment, they had Indy, who worked his way up into main lobby. Had Razor drop down and that barricade not been there, Free kill for Indy, and no problem. We would have been saying, great team play for Unemployment, forcing the Oryx to drop away. But instead, One Shot, they have more lives in this round. Razor has lived to fight again, and they're in fact going to play aggressive with their second lives. NVK, knife in the back of CZ. Now that his position is known, he'll lean on Razor for this support, and it's going to work because Razor, again, he was unnoticed. He can now go for a second or third, potentially, I suppose, as he looks towards the skylight. It'll make the safe play, and he'll dash back downstairs. Effective aggression there from One Shot.
But a good position from Hat as well. He's creeped his way into Archives, has some intel on a player just around the corner, and this is where Razor was also a few seconds prior, but is still going up One Shot. Kilo takes down Karn, the hard breach here. Some can openers in the pocket of Indy, but Unemployment, they're relying on frags. Utility and winning the round by that way, out of the question right now.
This is the play that could either win or more likely lose the round for Unemployment, but Hat's going to make it work. Getting one. His position now known, so he is caught between a rock and a hard place. I guess more accurately, caught between two desks. He'll move around trying to pre-fire every single corner, but he cannot look everywhere at the same time. He's just got to focus on Prod. He'll take care of him, but now that he's last alive, he has to find a way to deal with Razor downstairs and deal with Kilo a bit closer to the site. Has to find a way to recover this diffuser, obviously, which is just out of pocket. Only 8 seconds. He'll sneak back into the site just in the nick of time, but it's not going to matter. Kilo should be able to round the corner and get this kill in a second, and that he will. One Shot cleaning up round number 5. I got to say, looking better and better every single time they take the field here.
And that's the one miss that One Shot had on their previous defenses. The only round they've dropped was round number 2 on open area, where Unemployment were able to get the bomb down, and, well, they compensated for the earlier loss and then some, especially with that retake up on the top floor. NVK and Razor playing it a little risky, but maybe spotting, okay, maybe they don't have a drone on Marble, or maybe somebody isn't actively watching it. We might be able to catch them completely off guard, and catch them off guard they did. NVK gets the first kill, Razor follows up with the second. And at that point for Unemployment, a lot of their vertical control is now completely called into question with those first 2 kills, and they have to decide what do they want to do. Do they want to use Karn's remaining exothermics, start pushing forward, open up that wall, and maybe just have someone watching that top floor like we saw sitting on the skylight, or focus on trying to clear out these remaining defenders and maybe trying to nail down Razor? One Shot made the decision for them because Karn was killed, and now Unemployment are forced to start pushing into the site. Hat does get a very big pick and a very big entry, but the damage was done very early on NVK and Razor just making a very good read.
Attacker-sided Bank, not so much tonight, as it seems Unemployment find themselves in quite a deep hole. 1-4 right now, a 3-round deficit. This one really a must-win if they want to have any shot at bouncing back on their own defensive half. CEO last time heavily favored One Shot thanks to a pretty well put together stock hold, mostly by Razor, who handled all the utility sent his way pretty effectively. But more than that, holding down the hallway even after his position had been compromised. Once stock had been taken firm control by Unemployment, he didn't just give up that position and fall back to the site. He was still lingering around on main stairs. He still had that support from that elevator position, and with that support was able to take care of that player who actually took control of stock, took care of him, retook that position. If I say took one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. But Unemployment, now it is their responsibility to seize control. There it is, better word. To seize control of stock and hold on to it as long as they can.
One thing maybe Unemployment want to do is maybe shift the overall strategy of their take, but I was going to think maybe go for main stairs and instead... Okay. Well, that's different.
What?
I was going to say, okay, maybe you'd go over to Canto Wall and maybe try to put pressure on elevator that way, but Razor pops CZ and just destroys a Selma charge as well. Not gonna lie, Jonah, I was a little confused when it took, 3 Reterra drones and 2 nades to destroy a shield last time, and 1 nade this time. But not only is Razor still able to get a kill, he's also able to destroy that Selma charge as well. But we do have Indy on a skylight rappel as well, where if Razor rotates, could still fall, but he's just staying in this position. Doesn't matter.
Razor is nuts. I mean, a ridiculous shot onto CZ, which I don't even know where that came from. That one took more than just the one tap onto Hat, but he got the job done either way. I mean, early round, one shot, having that shield removed, I was going to say they're in a bit of trouble, but then Razor just puts the team on his back for a second and just destroys all the energy that Unemployment were hoping to build there. So Unemployment now, they've got to move around. They've got to shuffle things up, and, well, it looks like it's going to be an approach from the other side.
They don't really have many other options other than that. They have these two Selma charges, and I think allocating them to the wall that NDK is sitting on is the smart idea, but ooh, nice shot by Whitlock.
Okay.
Able to recover some of that energy from Razor earlier to take them down, and I'm glad Whitlock is hitting his shots, because without those nades, taking any bit of control will have to come from winning these gunfights. And with the angles that One Shot hold and able to play off each other inside of Banana, Trump, Elevator, all these positions, One Shot are still looking good, even with losing NVK.
As long as they stay composed here and they stay passive, knowing where Unemployment are coming from, it's no secret that they're approaching from this west side of the map. As long as they do that, they should be fine. Prod will sit back and use this soft destruction to get a nice headshot onto Whitlock. Kilo with the follow-up. Oh, he's on the hunt for another. Karn is not having it as he trades that one back, but it's a 1 versus 3 for the man himself. Here goes Prod, swinging out, no problem. Takes him down in one shot. Emerged from the half with a dominant lead, 5-1.
A dominant lead, and save for one round, also dominant in the entry game. 2 games now where you've had a team very fervently and undeniably in control of the entry game. Only one round where One Shot dropped the opening pick, and it was in round number 1, a round that they won anyway, not because of their early round play, but because of what they could do in the late round. Beyond that, Unemployment traded back one time, but it has very much been One Shot getting that opening pick, and still having some very good mid and late round play as well. That round in particular, Razor able to get those 2 kills, compensate for losing his shield very early on, Unemployment rotate, and as I said, once those nades from Whitlock were gone, there wasn't much they could do besides try to take gunfights, try to get some lucky shots, and Whitlock got one, but relying on that to win a round is just not something that, unfortunately, you can gamble on and bet on to get a round victory. So now, switching sides, maybe it is a defender-sided bank, Jonah, or if One Shot are able to move to match point in the next 3 minutes, it could just be a one-shot-sided bank.
Feels one-shot-sided because already not loving the strategy that Unemployment is bringing here. Not because it's bad, just because it lacks that creativity that One Shot were bringing. Azami is unbanned. Where's the Azami?
Warden? No Warden on blue stairs to, once some flashes go on in that dodge the ADSs, you don't want to hold it. They're just, hey, they have CZ upstairs on the Oryx, and I do still think Unemployment are leading into a little bit of what they're capable of, having Hat and CZ, 2 very good fraggers on the roam. I think it's not a bad strategy, but as you said, if CZ or Hat fall, which, let's be honest, in the early round has happened quite a few times at this point, all of them have been involved in the opening engagements in the vast majority, at least 5 out of 6 rounds, and most of the time, one of the 2 has been dying. Not something I'm really happy that they're relying on with how that first half went.
But like you said, Carter, they know what they're good at. They know their strengths, and if they play to them appropriately, maybe it can pay dividends. You have CZ up top. You've got Hat up top. This is where they can pop off, find frags, and put the team on their back. Unfortunately, that's not the case for Indy, as he's already been taken care of by One Shot, but Hat and CZ are still a threat. Sorry about that one, CZ.
Hat is still a threat.
Hat is still a threat, as CZ has been quickly assassinated just as I say that. And even though he's still a threat, he's not as present of a threat. He's going to drop down, play it a little bit safer, and now watch as the pressure builds around him.
One Shot starting to establish this vertical control as well, but that's what I was worried about. If CZ gets involved in the opening duel like he was on the attack, except he's losing them more often than he's winning them, now you have an opening for One Shot, and that strength you were leaning into, what you were hoping on to win you the round, well, it's falling apart completely. Hat does get one. He can be a very strong mid-round player, but as he's down, dropping back to sight, this looks like match point.
Oh, boy. Not looking good for Unemployment. Somehow, Karn is able to get the res off.
Wow.
Even with Swaylen trying to keep a watchful eye on it. So, it's not over yet. I think One Shot have realized that. They're not going to throw any more bodies just randomly down a hatch or into an exposed angle. Got to give it up to Karn for making something out of what looked like nothing, but still a 3v2. Still with Hat on 1 and now 0 HP. So unlikely that Karn is going to be able to get something done. Got this SMG-11 in hand. He can be powerful in it. Powerful
Smoke
with
canisters?
it, rather. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if these toxic smokes are going to be enough to stop 3 different attackers. He's not even going to turn to those smokes. He's going to reposition, wary of the hatch. Not confident enough to throw this out in that position. He'll relocate, exposing himself to the hatch, allowing the plant to go down either way because he was simply out of time. So Unemployment take another clean round.
5 rounds now for One Shot, Jonah. 5 rounds in a row.
Indeed.
Not even been close for Unemployment so far, as much as you just try to trick yourself into thinking that they were doing good in this game. One Shot, they've definitely been the ones in the lead. Trying to base a lot of that basement defense on the roam, it fell very quickly. Not Hat and CZ the first to fall, but Indy and then CZ very soon after. Based so much on it, and once One Shot took it down by not even really have to enter the building, Unemployment start retreating. Hat tries to get aggressive, but then it's a 1v4 effectively for just a few seconds before Karn gets that res off. Now as Unemployment switch to their second basement defense, we do see some changes. CZ bringing the Oryx, or sorry, the Goyo instead of the Oryx. Excuse me, got ahead of myself. But bringing those Vulcan packs, and if One Shot get to that execute stage like we saw last time, I think this utility is a lot more safer of a guarantee than just going on the roam and hoping that 100% commitment is what wins you the round.
Right, at least you have some supportive utility elsewhere in case, for example, CZ dies early again. Because, I mean, he's not shying away from the roam, at least for now. He is on this top floor dealing with these hatches. Maybe those Vulcan canisters will be deployed up top, or maybe he'll work his way back down to the site, but gotta do it quickly because One Shot are not a team to dilly-dally. Once they see what they're dealing with, they will, well, deal with it appropriately. And NVK, speak of the devil, is already whipping open these windows with that breaching hammer, trying to limit any rotations, open up some angles on anyone who might be lingering up above. But as they will soon discover, this hold from Unemployment is a little bit more passive, not as, well, high up on the map, not as elevated and aggressive as Hat is the last one to be up top and eventually will back down.
Everyone from Unemployment close to rotation. CZ on marble stairs, Hat a floor above him, but also on marble stairs. And Indy, he is on that middle floor, but he likely has a rotation back into open area to join up with the 2 other roamers, 4 other roamers actually, that are all off the site. But again, even then, they are all close to hatches to start moving back down. CZ does spot one, moving into the double door, into that long hallway, that elevator hallway. But Razor with the nade takes down CZ early on, not able to have the impact that we were hoping he might.
I mean, that's the problem with holding these extended positions without sufficient utility. When you're off the site like this, that's exactly the risk that you run. You've got a Banshee, you've got a Vulcan canister, but he did not have sufficient ADSs, did not have the projectile denial to prevent that nade from landing calmly at his feet. Already down a man, Unemployment, fighting an uphill battle for the remainder of what could be their final round on Bank, hoping to at least get another round before One Shot secures this. If they're able to stall out some time here, it's possible, but Swaylin hunting down Hat right now, well, that could be it. Hat will get him. Unfortunately, though, for One Shot, for Unemployment, Kilo will collect one at the same time.
Well, but Hat is still able to get some of the job done. I was going to say with Prod and Kilo both watching his position, he won't be able to rotate out, but Prod decides to push, and Hat gets a 2-piece now, not only swinging the round in his favor, but taking down some important operators. That Thatcher and those EMPs now off the board, and getting away when he honestly probably should have been dead. One Shot still able to open up some of these hatches as well. Kilo, and with Prod gone as well, or with Prod not able to maybe open up some of these hatches, he only has 1 exothermic to use on the server wall, but that is all you need in this position. No C4 from Unemployment because CZ fell early, but Karn still has 2 toxic canisters, and with about 20 seconds left, it might just be enough.
It might just be. Now that Razor gets a kill, as long as they trade this, they are in this fight. Indy does do exactly that. Now he has an angle on the last one, but Kilo, he pops up and takes the head of Indy right off. 7-1. Dominance from One Shot the entire way.
One singular hiccup in round number 2, but beyond that, One Shot win round number 1, and then starting from round number 3, they win 6 rounds in a row to dominate Unemployment on Bank. And hey, said it for West Garfield Park, Jonah. You know what else One Shot dominated that entire... Just what am I going to say? What did they dominate?
I mean, you're going to probably say entry.
They dominated the entry, save for one time in round number 1, as I said earlier. One Shot got the entry every time. And again, the funniest part about that is the one singular round that Unemployment got an entry kill, One Shot still won it. And I feel like if that just doesn't sum up the game in so many different ways for One Shot and Unemployment, I don't know what else would.
It really was nowhere close. I mean, we saw some bright spots from Unemployment through the first 2 rounds. And we complimented, even though they were unsuccessful in that first round, we complimented their attack. It really just never felt like that for the remainder. One Shot dominance not only in the fragging department, like you mentioned, but just in the strat department, bringing out creative things, dominating even where Unemployment have thrived on the entry, like you mentioned, in the past. Clean all the way around, but to close out the day and to break this one down even further, we'll pass it back to our analyst desk to finish us off.
Folks, I think what you saw here was just simple, sound siege on the side of One Shot. Oh, a lot of alliteration there, a lot of S's. But it's true. Looking at this, Connor, I think we didn't see them doing anything absolutely mind-blowing, anything crazy. Not to say it wasn't impressive, but they just didn't give Unemployment an inch to work with.
Yeah, it was just good old-fashioned siege from One Shot and looking dominant on a map that they have already looked dominant on across multiple competitions. I mean, they're a good bank team, and now they're an even better roster pushing through. It still makes it once again perplexing as to why Unemployment wanted to kind of test their fate going towards this battleground. Granted, you can take my opinion with a grain of salt because I don't have the Scrim GG results from Unemployment. I don't know if they're 7-0ing TSM on bank every time that they scrim it. Maybe that's the case, but right now on game day, they just weren't as good as One Shot. It was just total domination, complete outclass. It was like One Shot was barely breaking a sweat. Like Kilo's dying in prod on the support players, one sitting in sight, are dying like once or twice in a single half because guess what? None of the Unemployment players are even making it to the bomb site. And this is a map that is leaned a little bit more towards the attacker-sided facet. They can't even reach the bomb site. And they're in 1vx's all the time.
The question that now has to be asked, Tanner, is who are you more impressed with so far, One Shot or Rent Free? Who is the dominating team? Because neither one has lost yet.
I mean, despite what the standings might say, I think One Shot have clearly demonstrated they're the superior team in Challenger League at this point. Every game that they play, it's not even close. And they're coming in, they look consistent. Like the biggest thing that's going right from them is everybody's doing their job. Like everyone has an area of responsibility on defense, everyone has an area of responsibility on attack, and everyone is hitting their marks and making sure that they're not messing over their other teammates because they're sitting there and focusing and getting the picks that they need, playing disciplined siege, capitalizing, trading. It's just like everything is going right for them, other than like 1 or 2 rounds, which is going to happen in best of ones or in siege. You know, your enemy gets to say they've looked dominant. There's no other word to describe how well they've been playing these last few play days.
So, Connor, when you're Unemployment, do you just forget about this one? Like, is there not much to take away? Or can you learn from this match by maybe looking at the things that One Shot did properly? But, like, when you just don't get much of a chance to even execute on your own game, what do you talk about at that point?
I mean, a lot of the issues you almost could say was the supporting core on the side of Unemployment because there was some sort of misdroning and mistiming that you could see. I mean, sure, you can also see at the top is Mr. Carnage B running through, being 4 and 7 on the highest rating because he had a good cost. It's a little bit rough. And it's rough being Whitlock with a map like Bank. Your sledge is most likely going to get a lot of action because either the vertical pressure is absolutely massive on any of the bomb sites not in the basement, and guess what he has in his back pocket? Frag grenades. Those are always going to be impactful on this map, but especially for One Shot just pushing through and dominating almost every single facet, there is a lot to be returned to the drawing board for Unemployment. They can improve on a lot of things, and this is a big learning experience because this team has aspirations of not getting relegated and being pretty dang good. They're gunning for at least top 6, maybe even top 4, trying to get themselves maybe in the position that a strong stage 3 could push them into that relegation playoff bracket.
Well, now what may be a record-setting night tonight We're going to talk to Swaylin. He is now 4 for 4 on the stage with interviews. I think that's a new CL record.
And you can go to Wendy's.
Swaylin, we're here once again. I feel like I'm starting to run out of things to talk about because I can only pump your tires so much. It seemed like you and NVK didn't even really need to get into this game too much, with Razor Prod just going off in this match.
Yeah, definitely not. I'm just kind of existing right now.
Yeah.
I sit on cams, and then Razor, Prod, Kilo, Nate, they're all just killing everybody. So.
Is there, I don't want to speak too harshly of unemployment here, but is there much to take away from this match on your team other than a confidence boost? Because it did seem to just kind of work out the way you guys planned and wanted it to.
Like what I was saying yesterday, we kind of are expecting these maps that we've been going to. And so, when we went to bank today, we didn't really change anything. We just know, we play our game that, we're going to end up winning the game.
And now, since I've kind of run out of things to ask myself or say, do you have any final words for the fans, for the audience watching?
Thank you for all the support as always. It's much appreciated from, myself as well as the whole team. And, hopefully that we're proving some people wrong that have been, talking down on us.
These guys are 4-0 and in style as well. Thank you so much, Swaylin.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Yeah, the copy paste interview with Swaylin at this point, another answer is, how many times can you ask a guy, how do you guys do it?
I want to know
so
who's talking down on them.
That's what I was about to say.
Who's talking down on them? They're clearly in first place in terms of the overall standings from both stages. I think they have a 6-point lead over Luminosity at this point, so they're almost well and secured for playoffs at this point. Lots of seats to play yet, but they're still looking really solid.
Connor, does this, I just want to okay, this is where we're at right now. We're a little over the halfway mark, I would say, for some of these teams and games played. Looking at this, what are some of the things that maybe at the start of the stage you would have said, yeah, that makes sense, and what are some of the other things that kind of stick out to you as oddities?
One shot being up near the top, pretty good, as well as took the kids they're maybe a little bit higher than you would expect, and down towards the bottom, the West Garfields, you almost would expect them to have taken a little bit of a regression, and LSR being mid, not really that surprising. Probably the biggest surprises is right there in 9th place, Aerial Arise all the way down at the bottom, because they were doing pretty good with the team right above them as well. Luminosity, they won last stage, and now guess who sits and resides in that number 1 spot? A completely new team of Rent Free.
Yeah.
Another insane, crazy surprise.
I bet you all of these guys are just wishing that Outlast was still in here playing their matches, but there is still more to go. No team is out of it just yet. I mean, who knows? Game and Gladiators could come out of the gate with 4 wins and rocket themselves up the chart.
They could win the whole stage.
Game, pardon?
They could maybe even win the whole stage. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, unless Rent Free has something to do with it. Reality TV who won 7-5 off stream versus LG today. Regulation win versus LG. Mr. B, man, crazy.
It's huge. Things can flip on a dime. Every single game is crucial, which means you guys don't want to miss it. We've got more games coming up next week. We'll have a quick preview for you guys to anticipate what we can see. Tanner, looking forward to this. What are the not what do you want to see, because there's we can tell what we want to see, but what are the most, I would say, important games in your mind for what will affect people's stages?
I mean, there's a couple important games that you're seeing right now. The very first one that pops up to my mind immediately is Gaming Gladiators versus West Garfield Park. Both of these teams are sitting at 10th and 11th right now. They're fighting for relegation. This game very well could decide which one of these teams are continuing to fight for relegation and which one of these teams are going to have that bounce back and, maybe be able to come back for stage 3. The other big one that is kind of piquing my interest right now is the LSR Luminosity. LSR has looked absolutely stellar this weekend, and Luminosity has kind of been falling off. They're going to probably be looking for that bounce back week. They've got the talent, they've got the staff, they could do it. But LSR put a statement down this weekend. If they can manage to repeat what they were doing, this will be a great game for them to kind of bounce back.
Yeah, I think that next Playday is going to be crucially important for us as the viewers to really get a picture of, who's in muddy water when it comes to those playoffs at the end of stage 3. A lot could be decided in that single Playday next week. You're not going to want to miss it. Once again, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Today was crazy. It's just going to keep getting better. We'll see you next week.